Hi there, Jeff with Sacramento Koi here, and today we're talking about water quality. Maintaining good water quality in your koi pond can be crucial to you having an enjoyable experience with your koi. I was told over 20 years ago that the key to raising healthy koi is all about the water. If you maintain clean, healthy water, your koi are going to thrive. And after 20 years of experience, I couldn't agree more. It is vital that you pay close attention to your water quality. Far too many koi die each year from poor water quality. And the shame is that maintaining this good water really is not hard to do. Now, right off the bat, it should be noted that when you look at your pond, crystal clear water is no indication in itself that the water is healthy. You need to test the water to make sure. But what is it that we need to test for? Well, we have them right here. The big five are ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, pH, and alkalinity. So what are each of these? Ammonia is the waste that the koi produce at the end of their digestion of food, but it's also given off from their gills as they breathe. Ammonia can be very toxic to koi. Nitrites. These are a byproduct from a beneficial bacteria that grows in your filter that consumes the ammonia that the koi are giving off. Nitrites are also toxic to your koi. Nitrates. Another beneficial bacteria will develop in your filter that will consume the nitrites, turning them into nitrates. Nitrates are usually not a problem unless they get into extremely high levels in your pond water. Typically, that thin layer of algae, which is grown on your walls of your pond, will use these nitrates as food well before they become a problem. pH. pH is how acidic or basic your water is. Finally, alkalinity. This one's extremely important in maintaining a stable pond, but it is also the most often overlooked test that can be performed. Proper alkalinity will both stabilize your pH and also promote the growth of the beneficial bacteria in your filters. If your alkalinity drops below 40 parts per million, these beneficial bacteria will cease to function and begin to die off. We're going to start by getting a sample of water from our pond. Now, I like to use a little squirt bottle, but it makes things a little easier. We're next going to take the 4 vials, the glass vials for these test kits that we're going to test for, and then also the 1 plastic vial for the alkalinity. We're going to start by testing ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates because they need to sit a little while before you can read it. Chemicals to react for about 5 minutes. So let's start. You're going to fill each vial up to the white line. And that's going to give you 5 milliliters in each test tube. Now on the alkalinity, you're going to fill to the 25 milliliter mark. Okay. Now if you happen to get a little too much water into one of the tubes, a little pro tip. So here, I'm going to actually overfill this one on purpose. You go, oh no, I got too much water. Go ahead and give it a little flick, and that usually gets enough of water out to get you back to the white line. Okay, so let's start with ammonia. Ammonia is going to be a 2-part chemical reaction. You're going to have bottle 1 and bottle 2. And as you notice on them, it mentions you're going to add 8 drops of each. So let's start with number 1. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now same thing with number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And also a key tip to this is when you go to add the drops, don't hit your bottle at an angle, go completely vertical. This will actually surprisingly change the droplet size of how much you're adding, and they want you to add it straight up and down. So now that we've got our 8 drops in there, take an end cap, give it a shake. Okay, we're now going to set that off to the side. Test 1 done. Alright, now we're going to move on to nitrites. Nitrites is a single reaction, and I add 5 drops of this one bottle. So say up, straight up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cap it. Give it a shake. Don't drop it. We're going to set that off to the side and give. Once again, this has to take a couple of minutes to react to give us the most accurate reading. Nitrites are a little more complicated. Once again, 2-part bottle. It's going to add 10 drops of each one, but there's a little step in between. The nice thing about these cards that come with these liquid test kits, the instructions are actually on the back. So it's going to mention you're going to add 10 drops of bottle number 1. So once again, straight up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we're going to cap it. Give it a little shake. Okay. Now, before we add the second one, it wants you to shake this for 30 seconds. It's probably not something you want to see, so come back in 30 seconds. Another pro tip. Always make sure to shake the number 2 bottle of the nitrate test kit for the 30 seconds that they recommend. As you see by this test here, this is the same water being tested in both vials. However, the one on the left was before the bottle was shaken up. The one on the right was after the bottle was shaken. As you can see, very different readings. The one on the right is accurate. The one on the left is not. Alright, and it's been 30 seconds. So now we're going to go straight up and down, add 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, cap it, and now they want you to shake this for at least 1 minute. So same thing. I'll come back in a minute. Alright, it's been a minute. We're going to go ahead and let this sit off to the side and give it a chance to react. Now, you've noticed we're using liquid test kits. We love these liquid test kits because they're very accurate and easy to read. A lot of times you'll see the little strips with all little dots on it. You put it in, does 5, 6, 7 tests all at one time. Very convenient, but they're very prone to moisture throwing off the reading. Additionally, it can be very difficult because there's big gaps between the numbers as far as is that 1, is it 5? I can't quite tell. The liquid test kits are much easier to read and, in our opinion, a lot more accurate. So now, as these are sitting, we're going to go ahead and test our pH. pH, once again, is a single bottle reactant. The nice thing about this is it's an instant read. So we're going to add our 5 drops. 1, 2, 3, whoa. If you happen to mess up like that, no big deal. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to start over. Let's try that again. We're going to go fill it up to the white line. All right. And now try that again. Slower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Cap it, shake it, and now, boom, that's an instant ready to read. And we're going to set that off to the side and read them all at once. The alkalinity is a little different in that it's not going to be add chemical, and read. We're actually going to add, it's going to be 2-part. We're going to add the first one, 5 drops of green. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give it a swirl, and now we're going to count how many of the second one we add. We're going to you got to keep track of that. So we're going to go 1, and then swirl it in between each one. 2, swirl. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as you see, we're trying to get that reaction to go from green to fuchsia. Okay, so that was 10 drops. So what you do is you record that as 10, and then you multiply that number by 10, so we have 100 parts per million of alkalinity. So 100 alkalinity, pH, let's go ahead and read these now. So 100 alkalinity, pH is going to be right around 7.5 to 8.0. Nitrates are right around 40. Nitrites, 0. And ammonia, 0. Okay, so now that we have these numbers, what do they mean? Well, let's start with ammonia. Ammonia should be as low as possible. You want it to be 0. But what should you do if it starts to get higher? If it gets to 0.25 or 0.5, don't freak out. This just means that your fish are producing more waste than your filter can consume. Back off on feeding your koi and start to watch the levels very closely. The bacteria in your filter has to grow to meet the demand the fish are putting on it. This can take a week or two though. Now if your ammonia gets to 1.0, this is where it can start to get toxic to the koi. You do not want to let it get any higher than this level. A 25% water change will be a very good idea. Now if you test it and it shows that the level is even higher than 1.0, then a larger water change of 50 to 75% will be required. You want to get that level back down under 1.0 parts per million. Do not forget that most cities' water has chlorine in it. You're going to want to add some sort of dechlorinator of some sort to the pond water before you add all this fresh water. So dechlorinator in first, then fresh water. You're also going to want to stop feeding the koi until you get your ammonia under control. Feeding them only produces more ammonia. Your koi might not like it, but it could save their lives. Nitrites are going to follow a lot of the same rules as ammonia. You want it at 0. If they get to 0.25, slow your feeding. Higher than 1.0, stop feeding and do a 25% water change. Higher than 2.0, a 50 to 75% water change will be needed to be performed until you get the levels back under 1.0. A helpful hint is that by adding salt to your pond to a concentration of 0.2% or greater can reduce the toxicity of nitrites to your koi. The salt will temporarily inhibit the uptake of nitrites by the koi, thereby limiting the damage done by the nitrites to the red blood cells once in the bloodstream. Nitrates, as mentioned earlier, are usually not a big deal for koi ponds that have that nice thin layer of algae on the walls. Ideally, nitrates should be at 0, but levels up to 40 parts per million are acceptable. If nitrate levels get to 80 parts per million or above, you're going to want to address this issue with a water change. Although nitrates are not nearly as toxic to koi as ammonia or nitrites are, long-term exposure to them can cause a weakening of the koi's immune system. This means your koi will be fine until something goes wrong. Then, whatever the problem is, will hit the koi even harder than it would have normally. The pH scales goes from 1 to 14. From 1 to 6.9 is considered an acid. 7, being right in the middle, is neutral. And from 7.1 to 14 is called a basic. So, where do you want your pH to be? A pH 7 would be nice. However, you are right on the border of falling into the acidic side of the scale, which can be dangerous. A pH of 6 will start to burn the skin on your koi. At a pH of 5.3, weaker koi will begin to die off. And at a pH of 4.2, all fish die in your pond. So, for that reason, we like to keep the pH a little on the basic side at around 7.8 to 8.0. However, koi can handle a pretty wide range, from 7 all the way to 9. Anything over 9 though, and your water can become just as dangerous to your koi as a low pH. Well, now that we know what our pond water reading is, how do we adjust the pH if we need to? Realize something like baking soda is considered a basic, so we use that on the basic side of our scale. Acid can be anything from white vinegar to a muriatic acid for swimming pools. One is just stronger than the other, so we use that for the acid side. Looking at the scale here, if the pH gets too far out of one way of the range, just add the opposite. The pH gets too high, add some acid. The pH gets too low, add some baking soda. Realize though that a little bit of muriatic acid can go a long way. Start with a small amount of acid when trying to bring down the pH, and always keep several pounds of baking soda on hand to counter the effect of the acid in case your pH ends up going too low. Additionally, a pH that is bouncing up and down either naturally or by you adding chemicals to the water can be very hard on the koi. If you find that your pond wants to be at 8.4, but you want it at 7.8, let it stay at 8.4. Your koi will adapt to this pH and be fine. I once heard someone say, koi are like men. They hate change. The more stable you can keep your water quality, the happier they're going to be. Alkalinity is probably the most overlooked water quality test kit for koi ponds, and yet its importance cannot be emphasized enough. Alkalinity has a twofold purpose for your pond. When kept at the proper level, it will first stabilize your pH, preventing it from bouncing up and down on you. Second, it will also aid in the beneficial bacteria conversion of ammonia to nitrites to nitrates. Without alkalinity, the beneficial bacteria in your filter cannot do their job. Many times we've seen a pond water test out with a high ammonia and a low pH. Then when we test the alkalinity, there isn't any. It's all been consumed, thus allowing the pH to crash and preventing the beneficial bacteria from doing their job. Two things you really don't want to have happen in your pond. So what level do you want to have your alkalinity at? We found that between 90 and 120 parts per million, both beneficial bacteria in your filter will have what they need and your pH will be nice and stable. Now that you have tested your pond water and have discovered that, say you need to raise the alkalinity, what should you use? Sodium bicarbonate or baking soda works perfect for this. It'll increase your alkalinity, but it will not take your pH over 8.4, no matter how much you add. So, how much should you add? It is dependent on your volume of pond water. If you refer to this chart here, which comes with the alkalinity test kit that you buy from us, you can determine how much baking soda you will need to add. First, select how many gallons your pond is. Then, select what your reading that you just got from your current test was. This will then tell you how many pounds of baking soda you need to add to your pond in order to reach that 120 parts per million. You can either take your dose and sprinkle it around the surface of the pond, or if you have a waterfall with some small pools in it, you can just pile the dose right there in the waterfall and let the flowing water slowly dissolve it into the pond. But what if your alkalinity is too high? You may say, oh no, I accidentally added 3.1 pounds of baking soda instead of 1.3 pounds. It's going to be okay. Stay calm. There's no need to freak out. All you have to do is a water change to bring it down. Now, this brings us to a very helpful suggestion for all koi pond owners. Know your source water. Test the water that you use to fill your pond with, whether it's from the city water, a well, or even irrigation water. If you know how your source water tests out, you know how this will affect your pond when you do a water change. For example, here at our location, we know that our incoming water has a pH of 7.5 with no ammonia or no nitrates, which is great. But our alkalinity is only 20 parts per million, which is dangerously low. This means that whenever we do a water change, I know I'm going to have to add some baking soda to the pond. Because of this, we always keep a big bucket of baking soda on hand. As you have seen, testing your water is really not that difficult and only takes a couple of minutes to perform. Yet this simple thing done just once a week can make a world of difference for your koi, and also make your whole koi pond experience a truly enjoyable time. Thank you.